It's August 30th, 2019, and you're watching Battleground. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Battleground. I am filling in for Ezra, who is on assignment. And I know you cheeky monkeys out there think that on assignment is code word for Ezra is lazing on some Caribbean beach working on a suntan. Nothing could be further from the truth. Ezra is the hardest working man in this business, and he really is on assignment. And you'll be seeing more of his videos from the U.S. as the days go on. So until next Friday, you've got me for this hour of Battleground. And you know what, folks? I need some cheering up. I was driving in from Richmond's Hill to Rebel World Command headquarters, and I just felt absolutely so depressed today because the sun was shining, zero humidity, no traffic. The traffic that was on the road, everyone's using their turn signals to indicate lane changing and whatnot. And so you're saying, well, what's not to love? Well, I'll tell you what's not to love. I know that the day after Monday, Labor Day, the rat race kicks in big time. And I know that this is going to be a fleeting piece of paradise that will be over in some 72 hours or so. And I'm just wishing that there was some way to, I don't know, come up with a time-space continuum device that we could have every day, like this beautiful sunny Friday, this lazy summer day in Toronto that we have today, but we can't, and that's made me depressed. So there you go. Try to cheer me up. Try not to be so harsh on the old Menzoid today as he gets all melancholy of a summer that once again was too short a season, especially, by the way, since the GTA had the coldest, wettest June in 25 years, and that abbreviated our summer even more so. And once again, I ponder whatever happened to the global warming. Anyways, lots to discuss, folks. It's for the dog days of summer. It was a bit of a busy news week indeed. I guess we should kick it off, perhaps, with that pint-sized climate crusader, Greta Thunberg. She finally made it into the New York City harbor the other day. Our wonderful roving reporter, Kian Bexty, went down to New York to greet her. And I think we have some footage that Mr. Producer is going to queue up. And here's what Kian had to report.
Greta, how was the ride over? How was the ride over? Greta. I didn't get to ask Greta the questions that I wanted to. She was a little bit stunned, which is understandable. She's a 16-year-old that is being used by the United Nations to draw attention to their issues. She had no idea what was going on, and she's standing on stage right now. I just spoke with an official from the United Nations here in the delegation to greet Greta, and I asked him very point blank if the message that Greta and the United Nations are touting here includes the vision that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle share, that it is unethical in this day and age to have children. I think that the answer for most sane people is no. It's a natural part of humanity, and if you stop doing that, well, you stop being human. His answer, well, it was a bit concerning because he would not deny it. Hi, I see you're with the UN there.
Yes.
Would I be able to ask you just a quick question? It's Greta Thunberg is here.
Yes.
Why is this important to Americans?
I think it's important to everyone. I don't think it's just important to Americans, it's important to the world. I mean, the message that Greta's sending is one that we all should be listening to very carefully. I mean, the climate change issue is a crisis, and we have to stay with it no matter what we do. And it's amazing to have a young person like Greta delivering the message. We all should listen.
Would you agree with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle that it's unethical to have children in this day and age when the climate crisis is so pressing?
I think we need to focus on Greta's message today. I mean, Greta's here delivering this message. She just arrived after a long trip. I think that that's where I'm keeping my focus today, and that's what I'm listening to. And she's doing an amazing job.
Let's focus on Greta's message. But before we do, folks, we have our first super chat from Herzog Nell. $50. No, rather 50 ZAR. I think that might be South African currency. And the message is, love Rebel Media. Well, Herzog, I'm already feeling buoyant. Thank you so much for making my day by kicking it off with that generous donation. I'm not sure what 50 ZAR is, but I know 50 is a big number, so I'm assuming it's a nice piece of change indeed. Anyways, Greta Thunberg, what is this message that we're supposed to focus on? Okay, this is a teenager who played hooky to first get famous, to skip out of classes. Now, back in the day, folks, if I did that, I'm probably going to detention. I'm not being celebrated by the United Nations, Greenpeace, and the whole climate crisis cabal that is out there. And then we had this, we got to have this young girl bring her message to America for some reason. I guess it's not good enough to see her pontificate on Skype. So we have to have her in person. But she didn't want to fall into the whole hypocrisy thing here, that why do the likes of an Al Gore or David Suzuki always preach lower your carbon emissions and cut back, and yet they're on executive jets crisscrossing the world. So I give her props for that, but not really, because what was the alternative? Well, the alternative was spending 2 weeks at sea on a multi-million-dollar yacht that was really designed for racing. No bathroom facilities, by the way, on this yacht. But in the grand scheme of things, for those who do have to travel for business or travel abroad to see family members, is that really a viable alternative, folks? The idea of getting into a boat and with no toilet and limited food and sailing across 14, 15 days. And that's just a transatlantic crossing. What if you had to go to New Zealand? I mean, you know, that I'm not a mariner, but I'm sure it would be several more weeks at sea. It should also be noted, there was a report that her support crew, some members had to fly over to New York. So much for the zero carbon footprint thing. And I just, you know, it's hard to get upset at this girl. I know she's got some sort of disability, and that further puts the brakes on me in terms of criticizing her. My contempt, folks, is really for the puppet masters. Greta Thunberg is a mascot. She is a puppet. The people behind this scheme, I am sure their goal right now is not how do we send a climate change message to the masses, or how do we live by example and show people how to live their lives. But I think it's all about how do we monetize Greta Thunberg. And I am, if it hasn't already happened, I'm sure it's only a matter of time before the merchandise comes out. Just like a Disney superhero movie, there'll be a Greta action figure, there'll be Greta t-shirts, Greta posters, so on and so forth. And you mark my words, somebody is going to get rich from this. I applaud Kean for trying to get down there. That was another thing that killed me about that report, folks, when she showed up in New York on Wednesday. And it was the fact that those barricades, at least this is what the information Kean learned, they weren't erected by the police in New York or the city of New York, but evidently this was a Greenpeace production. They were the ones keeping the great unwashed masses away from little Greta Thunberg. And I'm wondering, what right do they have to modify, if you will, public property? I mean, this is really a hefty degree of chutzpah. That, oh, here comes Greta. You're gonna be lucky if you get to ask her one question or get a quick snap because she's very important. And really, is she? This is a girl. I'm sure she means well. I'm sure her heart's in the right place. But what kind of scientific wherewithal does she bring to the whole climate change debate? What kind of invention is she on the cusp of in terms of the planet moving away from fossil fuels to some kind of miraculous green energy device? And I would suggest the longer she stays out of school, the further away she is from coming up with that invention. Mr. Producer tells me we've got some more super chats coming in. Proud Boys Calgary, $5 Canadian. Thank you so much, Proud Boys Calgary. World's coolest capital city, Edmonton, declared a climate emergency. It'll be an emergency when it's minus 40 and they can't afford to turn on the furnace. You know, that is amazing. I did see that story. And if you think summertime in Edmonton is a climate emergency, just wait till the dog days of winter in January and February, where it gets absolutely bone-chilling frigid in Edmonton. I mean, and also, is it a climate emergency or is it a climate crisis? I keep getting these terms used intermittently. I guess they mean the same thing, but I would like to see some, meat on the bone, if you will, in terms of statistical proof that what Edmonton is going through right now is a climate emergency or a climate crisis. I think Edmonton in August is very, very pleasant, and I would more bemoan the climate in February in Edmonton than in August, that's for sure. So thank you, Proud Boys Calgary, for that $5 donation. And we have from Primpa 108, $10 Canadian. Thank you so much, my friend. Zero carbon journey on a boat made from fossil fuels. The crew will now fly back and a new crew will fly in. They now have their mentally disturbed, exploited teen to preach to the climate cultists. Indeed, they do. And, I don't think you're trying to be mean about being mentally disturbed. I'm not sure exactly what it is that Greta suffers from. I heard the word mutism, Asperger's syndrome, but clearly there are some issues with this girl, and I'm not mocking her for that. I'm not rejoicing in that. I think that makes it all the more insidious that the people in her inner circle, including her parents, I'm sorry to say, they are the ones exploiting this. And it's only to further their own agenda. This is not doing Greta any service. If they really cared about their daughter, they put her back in school. But evidently, she's got to now take the entire year off, because evidently sailing around the world and addressing UN bureaucrats and meeting heads of state, presumably, that is more important than getting a high school education. And I ask, what can we possibly learn from this little girl? And please, let's get away from this. Oh, it's about raising awareness. My goodness gracious, you can't turn on a radio or TV station or go to an internet site at any given minute and not hear the words climate change. I think we're pretty aware about the whole climate change issue. Of course, the debate is, and here's where I risk being labeled as a denier, how much of the climate change is because of man-made activity. And the fact that climate change, well, it's been happening since the dawn of time, actually. We've had, I believe it's 5 or 6 mass extinctions. Long before Homo sapiens was around driving SUVs and riding on snowmobiles. So maybe, just maybe, there is something else at play when it comes to climate change. Maybe solar activity, maybe in the case of the dinosaurs, that enormous asteroid that smashed into the Yucatan Peninsula. So, but evidently, even raising the debate makes one a denier, makes one anti-science. And but I reach out to the Greta Thunberg camp and say, what do you have as an alternative in the here and now? When Edmonton, when the winter hits Edmonton in the months ahead, and it is minus 40, what do you have that Edmontonians can use to heat their homes and drive their cars? to withstand that kind of climate emergency, otherwise known as wintertime. So that's my take on Greta. But one other thing, what do you want to bet? What do you want to bet, folks, that Justin Trudeau and Climate Barbie are just champing at the bit to do some kind of photo op with this girl? It would not surprise me in the least that if we see Greta with Justin and Climate Barbie prior to the October 21st election date. This fits right into their wheelhouse, that being optics and virtue signaling as opposed to real tangible solutions. And I'm sure Justin's people, I'm sure Gerald Butts is right now burning up the phone pleading for an audience with this little Greta because, well, I hate to say this, she's a useful idiot. She's a pawn, she's a puppet, she's a mascot. And again, shame on the adults that would exploit a little girl like this. Well, moving on from that, by the way, Mr. Producer, do we have another clip of Greta, I believe? And this, I guess, speaks to the issue of something's not right here. But anyways, we're going to run this other little clip before we move on to another item.
So let's not wait any longer. Let's do it now. Yes.
You know, it almost looks like she's having buyer's remorse. That certainly wasn't a speech worthy of Winston Churchill, to say the least. But she looks almost confused, a little frightened, a little, did I bite off more than I can chew? And as far as the people giving her a standing ovation, for what? I mean, where's the little boy from The Emperor Has No Clothes to point the accusatory figure at Greta and more appropriately at her handlers? I think at the end of the day, folks, it is downright embarrassing. It is cringeworthy. It's almost like a parody from South Park. And hey, what do you want to bet? South Park will do a take on this too. That I will make some time for. All right, enough with little Greta. We have another clip, Jessica S., whose surname I continue to struggle to pronounce, so forgive me. But Jessica S., our wonderful roving reporter, she's gone off to Greenland via the UK, and of course, while in the UK, what we like to do, at least in terms of offering moral support and find out how he's being treated, Jessica wanted to visit Tommy. And that's one story, but there was another interesting little story in terms of the screening process. Now, as Ezra has pointed out on several occasions, when you are going in to see a prisoner at this particular institution, it is a security system that rivals that of any airport. You are patted down, you are searched. You can't even bring in a pen. You know, if you wanted to take notes, you have to memorize everything. Can't bring in a phone. You have to show photo identification. It is absolutely rigorous. And I understand there has to be, I guess, an infringement on our rights when one is going to travel on an airplane or go into a high security prison. I get it. But Jessica was there at the right time and the right place to discover something that speaks to an appalling double standard, especially since we're told all this searching and all this security is about public safety. And, well, you see what Jessica encountered.
I went in with two other visitors for Tommy today. One was a woman, and when we were going through security, Something that I couldn't help to notice was that the security officers asked her to remove her cardigan when we were going through security, which I do understand. We've been through airport security, which is very similar to this. So she took off the cardigan, went through security, and right after her was a Muslim woman wearing a full burqa. She, of course, was not asked to remove anything. And what was really shocking is here we have to do our fingerprints. We have to scan our fingerprints to get through all the different doors. It's a way to keep tabs of who's here and who's leaving at what time. So all of us were scanning our fingerprints. When it came to the Muslim woman, she had henna all over her hands. And so the ink was not only on the top of her hands or on the palm, but it was covering her fingerprints, all 10 of her fingers. And the scanner wasn't reading her fingerprints, and that didn't seem to be a problem in this situation. So the officers did let her go through with a full burqa, covered her fingerprints, and so I'm not really sure what the security does with that. If they don't know who's coming in or out, how do they actually keep it secure?
Incredible, but not surprising, isn't it? And I can understand the motivation of the prison guards. Yeah, they have a strict adherence of the rules that they're supposed to follow. But what do you want to bet that going through their heads as a Muslim woman, assuming it is a woman, by the way, because how do you know if you were in that fabric coffin what the sex is of the person? But that's a tale for another time. How do you square it that you would let someone in a disguise, in a mask in, without the pat down, and I would say, and without the reveal, and I would say, do you really want to be on the other end of an accusation of Islamophobia, that you made this woman distraught? You violated her religion by asking her to show her face and see if it matched the driver's license or the passport or whatever kind of photo ID that she had. Furthermore, I am absolutely stunned by the henna on the fingerprints. That almost seems purposeful in terms of, fooling the system, fooling the scanner, and getting some anonymity for somebody that perhaps doesn't deserve it. But I am sure that prison guard, because this is Islam we're talking about, this isn't like Jessica coming in or Ezra coming in and we can, make them go through every hoop that we deem possible. It's just that we don't want a complaint filed to the authorities. We don't want the Guardian knocking at the door the next day about doing an expose about Islamophobia in the prison visitor realm. And therefore, that's when this self-censorship of the rules applies. And so much for public safety trumping all. It clearly doesn't, at least when it comes to one particular faith. That is, I am so happy that Jessica was there. I mean, talk about Johnny on the spot, right time, right place to actually eyewitness that. And I wonder now that the powers that be know that this happened on that day, will they take action? Oh, of course they won't take action. This is business as usual. They would take action if the poor guard actually followed the rules. And it's, like I said, it's not the first time, folks, that a double standard kicks in when it comes to the law or public safety or the rules and regulations. I remember we're going back about 6 years ago when I was at Sun News, and we did a little experiment with the Liquor Control Board of Ontario. We went to 3 stores because I heard through the grapevine that this was happening, and I didn't believe it. So we decided to do a test and see firsthand. And what the test involved, folks, was bringing a 15-year-old boy in a full burqa and seeing if he could buy hard liquor. Oh, and just wait till you see what... Oh, Mr. Producer's giving me the stern finger up. Don't think we have that clip. So I'll tell you what happened, and if we find the clip, we'll run it later, folks. Sorry about that. We went to 3 different Liquor Control Board of Ontario stores, and a 15-year-old boy was indeed able to buy big 26-ounce bottles of Sambuca, and no questions asked, no request for identification, and by the way, what good, he did have identification on him, but what good is identification unless you match the printed photo with the face, which would mean, of course, unveiling. So just think about this. The reason why the government of Ontario has a liquor monopoly in this province is that they operate under the proviso of social responsibility. And what that means, that's code words, folks, for one of the biggest lies out there, that if we let the private sector sell liquor, well, you know, you're going to have 15-year-olds drinking Colt 45 in the parking lot, getting plastered. We're government. We answer to a higher authority. Oh, really? And by the way, Mr. Producer just told me in my earpiece that we do indeed have that clip. So a photo says 1,000 words, and I guess a video, well, that says 10,000 words. Here you go, folks.
You can buy a bottle of hooch, or if the LCBO is going to live up to their socially responsible mandate of challenge, and we're going to find out what happens right now.
$13.25, please. No, $31.25.
No challenging reviews there, eh?
No, not even a little bit.
Well, there you have it. Not even a little bit. By the way, in case you were thinking, I did get a tiny fringe of criticism that I was leading to the corruption of a minor doing that. In case you were wondering about that, folks, in case you were wondering about that 15-year-old boy, the bottle of booze was promptly confiscated from him as soon as we got into the vehicle. So he didn't even crack the seal in either of the 3 visits we made. But you saw no challenge. No asking for identification, and of course, as I said earlier, even if you were to provide identification, that's meaningless unless you show your face to show that it matches the photo ID. And it's just absolutely astounding to me that we have government in terms of, in the UK, the prison guards, and in Ontario, the Liquor Control Board of Ontario, just flaunting the rules like this. By the way, if that had been a private sector liquor store somewhere and that was part of an expose, what do you want to bet that the liquor authority at the government would sweep in, find that store, find that employee, maybe that employee gets terminated, that the store suffers maybe a 3-day or 1 week or 1 month suspension, but there would be a monetary, tangible penalty. But because it's government, when it comes public, they just shrug their shoulders and they go, oops, my bad, we'll try better. And the joke of it is, folks, is that as we've revealed just a month ago, that you don't even have to disguise yourself at Liquor Control Board of Ontario stores right now. You just have to pick up the hooch and walk out, because the official policy is they're not going to stop you. And it is a problem. We ran a piece on this. Incredibly, since we, the Ontario taxpayer, own this liquor retail and warehousing entity, you would think that we would have the right to the information about how much this is costing. And guess what? We don't. We asked the LCBO to provide that information. They said no. We filed an FOI. We were told for 5 different reasons why they couldn't supply that information. I reached out to the Ministry of Finance, which is who the LCBO answers to. Incredibly and cowardly, they said, well, this is an LCBO matter, and they bounced it back to them. So right now we're in the process of challenging the LCBO FOI request. I'm not hopeful. I don't think we're going to get it. But in the meantime, since that report ran, the union that the liquor employees belong to, they came out and said that their estimate of theft is, take a seat for this one, folks, $77 million a year is just going out the door by people, some of whom are blatant about it. They just actually wave to the clerk at the counter and say, have a nice weekend, and they walk out with their nice 40-ouncer of Maker's Mark or whatever you have. And again, it speaks to the question, doesn't it? Where is the social responsibility there that you would allow liquor to just fly out the door? And by the way, liquor that is not owned by a private entrepreneur, but by we, the people of the province, and we're not, mature enough to get the real figures from the government. Now, I don't know how the union came up with that $77 million a year, but I got to be honest, until I hear another figure, I'm not going to dispute it, and I believe it. So again, a big thank you to Jessica for showing that egregious double standard. And I think in both cases, folks, it all comes down to the people in charge, whether it's the prison guard or if it's the clerk at the LCBO. They know that this shouldn't be happening. They know this is against the rules. But they also know if they enforce those rules, there could be a penalty to pay in terms of a complaint to the authorities, a complaint that gets leaked perhaps to the press, and perhaps when it comes to throwing somebody under the bus, it's going to be them. And that's why they do the three monkeys when it comes to the garb of Islam in terms of the burqa and the niqab. And that is shameful. You just double check, no super chats right now. So we shall move on. And this is really awful, I think, folks. We have, of course, our former Canadian Prime Minister, I think for 90 seconds, Kim Campbell. And she has said in recent years some, I think, really awful things, but she might have outdone herself this time. She is hopeful that Hurricane Dorian hits bang on Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. She's actually rooting, that's what she says, quote, "I'm rooting for a direct hit on Mar-a-Lago." And I'm wondering, why would you say that? A hurricane is potentially deadly. Trump, by the way, if that's her target or her intended target, he's not at Mar-a-Lago. So you're hoping maybe for some people that are just regular working staff to get injured or killed, or some guests that happen to be going there. I just think this is absolutely appalling. I think this is the opposite of being a diplomat, of being someone who once held the office of Prime Minister. And my goodness, I mean, Kim Campbell, of anyone to get onto a public platform and espouse her ideas after what happened to her during that election, in which she took a conservative majority government and turned it into a government where, well, you could have a caucus meeting in a Mazda Miata. And for those who aren't into cars, that means 2 seats, 2. It was absolute decimation. And I know the apologists will say, well, that you can't blame her all for that. You know, the tide had turned on Brian Mulroney by that point. But still, that has the rank as the biggest electoral catastrophe of any government in recent memory that I can think of. And again, to say something like this, and also I want to address folks, imagine if things were different. Imagine if this was somebody, say, 5 or 6 years ago, rooting for a hurricane to hit President Obama's residence. Imagine that. Imagine the media outcry. The mainstream media on this story seems to be giving, Kim Campbell a pass. I mean, oh yeah, it's part of, dump on Trump. That's okay in this day and age of Trump derangement syndrome. But I can tell you, if this had been some commentator wishing a natural disaster on a Democrat or a liberal, this would really be front page news. There'd be screams for apologies. There'd be screams about stepping down, resigning, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But because it's rooting against Trump, that's okay. You know what else that reminds me of? And I don't know if we have this video. I'll check with Mr. Producer. But remember when the illustrious leader of the Green Party, Elizabeth May, had that drunken by the way, when I say drunken, I'm actually being charitable here. I hope this was alcohol-induced, because if it was sober, I think it makes it worse. But do you remember when she was dumping on Prime Minister Harper and applauding, if you can imagine, Omar Khadr instead? If you don't, it's really worth waiting to see. And you're going to have to wait, because Mr. Producer is giving me that stern finger. Not yet, not yet. So we will go back to that, because to me, that never gets old. And I think for politicians of a different stripe, what Elizabeth May did some 5 or 6 years ago would have been career suicide. But that isn't the case, because she's not of a particular political stripe where the exact same words would mean a letter of resignation and a groveling apology. So as my producer searches for that clip, if we can show it, we got it. Just wait you see this, in case you haven't before, folks. Get the popcorn out.
Do you guys ever wake up with old theme songs from former black and white TV shows that you never thought your kids would ever see, and they're running through your head? Like every now and then I wake up thinking about, Lisa, you've got to wait. Lisa, I wake up thinking about a horse is a horse, of course, of course. This morning I wake up thinking this. Why am I thinking this? Do you guys wonder?
Liz,
hang on.
we wonder why you're thinking that too, but
Wait, you know what? Do you guys remember the theme song? Welcome back. Who knew Khadr was spelled K-H-A-D-R? Welcome back, Omar Khadr. It matters to say it. Welcome back, Omar Khadr. You're home. Doesn't it strike you as unusual? I didn't use up my time. No, you didn't.
there's a lot unusual about your speech, Liz, but we're going to take off.
Omar Khadr, you've got more class than the whole fucking cabinet. Thank you.
Wow. Where do you begin to dissect that? Here's an elected official openly welcoming back a terrorist, somebody who killed a man, somebody who maimed a man, and then ends it with that profanity-laced expletive of how he has more class than the entire Harper cabinet. I mean, how does Omar Khadr have a scintilla of class? Can he even spell class? And Elizabeth May, to be seen doing that in public, again, I really hope she was drunk. She appeared to be drunk, but even that's not an excuse for what she did. And I think it speaks really to the character. And by the way, when Elizabeth May says, do you remember those old black and white TV shows? Well, I'll tell you something, Liz. When it comes to you, the black and white old TV show I remember, Addams Family, The Munsters, The Twilight Zone. Yeah, I think a few episodes of The Twilight Zone that end very badly for the protagonist. That's what you remind me of when it comes to old black and white TV shows. And we have a few super chats here. And we have, oh, bear with me, folks. I think my screen, frequent viewers of this space when I'm guest hosting know that this happens often, that the technology doesn't always cooperate. And I'm just going to try to press a button here. Nope, no entries found. And okay. We'll see if we can fix that during a break. What's that? We don't have breaks on this show? Well, we shall move on. But I'm more than happy to hear you weigh in on either Kim Campbell or Elizabeth May as my trained broadcast professional dutifully fixes things. And just like that, like a Keebler elf, he has done so already. And what do we have, folks? We have Balajic 70. He gives $24.99. Thank you so much for that generous donation. Really appreciate it. And Balajic 70 says, keep up the great work, TRM, with love from the People's Republic of California. Well, thank you so much. I wonder, that's humorous. You notice, folks, that anytime a real nation uses the words people's or democratic in its official title, and I'm thinking of North Korea here, it is anything but democratic, and it is anything other than, a dictator running it, has nothing to do with the people, other than oppressing the people. I've always loved the perverse irony in that. So, People's Republic of California. Grant Johnson gives £10. Thank you so much, Grant. Keep up the good work, and thanks for supporting Tommy. Well, I guess it's only a matter of time. If memory serves, it's September 16th, I think, that he's released, which is, 17 days away. We all pray for Tommy, and we support him. And we've gone over time and time again how odious it is that this man has even spent 1 hour in jail as opposed to several months for practicing journalism, the same sort of journalism others in the media, the mainstream media, were doing, and went without any kind of punishment. And I know what bothers Tommy too is, because he's a big football fan, that's what they call soccer there, being banned from football games. To me, folks, that's spite, that's malice. I mean, the only reason behind that is they know Tommy likes his football, so we're going to take it away from him. He's going to stay at home or in a pub and watch the games. He can't attend it in person. And I mean, could that be a precedent? I mean, I can never. It's funny. We just had here in Ontario the killer of Don Edwards' parents released. Don Edwards was an all-star goalie for primarily the Buffalo Sabres back in the 70s, early 80s. And his mother and father were both killed by this maniac. And Corrections Canada, for whatever reason, has decided, well, he's done his time, and this man, guilty of double homicide, is now free to go. Mr. Edwards, who is long retired, he is just gobsmacked by this. He thinks this man is still a threat that might even indeed come after him or other members of the family. That seems to be an afterthought. But can you imagine the parole board saying, all right, we're going to give you your freedom, but you can't go to any Buffalo Sabres games. You can't go to any Toronto Maple Leaf games. Or it's so bizarre. And here we have Tommy, as I said, for practicing journalism, getting this added layer of penalty heaped onto him just for, like I said, spite and malice. How shameful of the powers that be in the UK. Absolute shame. 2 new super chats, I'm informed, folks. And here we have Trinoculus P, $5. Thank you very much, TP. David, your 4th of July YT video is much appreciated. Thank you for your respect for the U.S. Texas loves real Canadian sons of the North. Well, you know what? Thank you so much, and I want to thank everyone. That was just a regular commentary. It was just to laud the 4th of July celebrations and to stand up to the critics, again suffering Trump derangement syndrome, for complaining that he was putting military hardware on display for the 4th of July parade. I saw nothing wrong with that. A lot of the networks, on less than 24 hours notice, had a little hissy fit and said they wouldn't be covering the parade live. So I guess if I'm a member of Fox News, I'm saying thank you. We'll take the exclusive. It'll improve our ratings. But so it just came from the heart. I was just applauding the president for doing this and bemoaning and denouncing the mainstream media for turning the 4th of July, or trying to turn the 4th of July parade into something Americans should feel shame and resentment about. And it really resonated. I can't explain it. I think it got well over 200,000 views. And I'm just going by memory. And it was all from the heart. And thank you again. I forgot about that one. And I'm glad you were able to see it. As well, we have PKE Racing. PK donates $5 Canadian. David, are you taking Jay-Z to court for assault? Now, Jay-Z, I guess that is Jonathan / Jessica Yaniv. It's complicated. We want to. I'll tell you how things panned out on that. In fact, if you haven't seen that video, folks, as I talk about the preamble up to it, maybe my trained broadcast professional can find it and show you a clip of the assault. This was an assault caught on camera, 2 cameras actually, and it is absolutely clear that Jonathan Yaniv is not only assaulting me, but assaulting me with a weapon, namely that pink metal cane of his. I did not lay a finger on him. All my actions are defensive stances, which didn't stop him. I think I counted about 5 shots to my head and shoulders with that cane. The final one did a bit of damage, I have to tell you, but I won't go into that. And meanwhile, Mama Yaniv is using her iPad also as a weapon, literally smashing it into my face. So if you haven't seen that video, folks, I'm going to bring you down memory lane of what happened to me earlier this month, and just check it out.
You're not going to go close to it. Look.
I'm not. Hey!
You're not going to go close.
Don't you touch me!
Going to go.
Don't you touch me!
You're not going to go close to it.
Get out! Get away!
Don't you!
Get away.
You better
Get
not!
Away.
You better
Get
not!
Away.
No!
You make contact! You're gonna go to jail!
You are going to jail!
Go away!
I know! Hey! Don't touch me!
You're going to jail!
Jonathan, why do you send sexually explicit messages to young girls?
Hey,
go away!
You're going to jail!
Go away!
My iPad!
Why don't you?
Now!
Go away!
Are you
Go away!
You,
go away!
That's assault!
Go away!
You just smashed your cane over my head!
Go away!
I did not touch you!
Go away!
I did not!
Go away!
Now you're touching. Look at this!
Go!
You people are ill!
Go away!
Yes!
Go
You
away!
go away!
I'm at 88.
Why? Because I'm talking?
Go away!
Because I'm talking?
Go away!
Go away!
Huh?
You go
Go
away!
away!
Because I'm talking?
Go away!
Huh?
Yes, I am!
Go away!
You go away!
Go away!
You gonna do it again? You gonna do it again? Come
Go
on,
away.
get another shot.
Can you pick it up?
Go away!
Pick up my iPad?
Go away! Go away!
Okay, that's the
Go
second
away.
shot. Did you see that, sir?
Go away! Go away!
I do.
Go! That way!
Go away!
Go!
What? This is a common parking lot.
You're not allowed to.
Okay,
Go.
you have knocked me twice with your cane.
Go!
Get away!
You're lucky
Go.
I don't beat up girls or fake girls. Oh, and now you too, eh?
Go away!
Go away! You go away!
Get off the property!
Okay, that's 4 shots.
Get off
5.
the property!
You go away!
Huh?
Go!
You go
Excuse
away!
me.
Get off
Go
the
away.
property!
Look,
Go away!
there's got lots
Go
of
away.
eyewitnesses.
I don't care!
Go away!
Go away! Go!
You are a provoker!
I'm a
Go away.
provoker?
You go away!
No, get away from him.
That's okay. Please, I'm really hoping for the cops to come.
No.
Go away!
Go in the house. Go in the house.
Okay, that's good. Give me a bruise. Give me another bruise.
Triple A Joe
Call
told
the police! You front the police.
Is it?
Why don't you? Why don't you front the police?
See, I can take your physical blows, you fake woman. But I'm not. Yeah, I'm just nasty. What about all these immigrant women that he polarizes with me?
You're probably a Trump lover anyhow.
Oh, a Trump lover. Nothing could be worse.
Excuse me. Off the fucking property. Go away.
You know what?
Look,
this is multiple.
Everybody here.
I know.
You go away.
I know we have lots of eyewitnesses.
Hey, give me the phone.
A little after this once. Oh, brings back such warm and jolly memories of the Vancouver area for me. Folks, I love that passerby who happens upon the scene and for whatever reason says, you're probably a Trump lover. It's the scope of Trump derangement syndrome. It just knows no bounds. But I have to set up what the scenario was prior to those two Yanivs assaulting me. They, just prior to them being outside, they were already in their condo. They were in the lobby. I did not trespass into the condo. I was in the public area of the condo complex and retail complex. And what I'm saying, folks, is that they were already home free. They're inside. I'm outside. I was asking questions through the door. Jonathan was just giving me profanity-laced non-answers. Then I went outside of the area where the front entrance is, and lo and behold, Jonathan had scampered up to the 4th floor, and this time he had a window open, again screaming profanity at me. And then a little later on, I can't, of course, trespass into their private residence. I'm getting ready to go home. And I see Mama Yaniv coming out, screaming at me, saying, what kind of pose do you want me to do? And she's doing various vulgar poses. And lo and behold, I didn't even know, there must have been another exit. Jonathan Yaniv had already left too, but he was literally running back to the scene. And as he's running, he's screaming, go away, go away. Well, wait a minute, go away. You're coming to me, A. B, 10 minutes ago, you were home free. I'm about to leave. So, and C, by the way, remember, this is a guy that scams the transit company. He is often seen on a mobility scooter, and it needs one of those special vans to drive him around. He is not disabled. He's capable of running. He's capable of swinging a cane like a baseball bat. And so there's another element of his fraud. Now, the police did come. He called the cops. It seems that Jonathan calls the cops every second day. I mean, for goodness sakes, if he even thinks that a fast food restaurant has denied him service, he'll call the cops. In any event, 3 RCMP cruisers came. I did show them the video on the scene. And I was wondering right there, are you going to charge with assault? And it was kind of I'm going by memory, but it was a bizarre kind of back and forth with one of the RCMP officers, because one of the first things he said is, what did you do to his hand? And that floored me because I didn't even touch a pinky on either of these Yanivs. I told the officer if there's anything wrong with his hand, well, first of all, given the way he was swinging that cane, if he's got any injury, it's probably tennis elbow. Secondly, if there's anything on his hand, given I never touched his hand, I can tell you that's either a previous injury or he just self-inflicted it by punching a brick wall or something. And then we got into a bizarre horse trading argument. Is that I said, are you going to go with assault charges? He said, well, you know, if we do that, then we might have to charge you with harassment. And I said, harassment? For what? Practicing journalism? Anyways, I can tell you folks, since that aired, I can only imagine that this RCMP detachment has been inundated with calls asking, what are you going to do about this blatant assault? Because that officer did reach out to me. He's requested the original footage, which we're sending. And I also suggested when I talked to the officer by phone back in Toronto, please, by all means, go and get the surveillance footage, something that apparently hadn't occurred to them. I don't know why, but I have absolutely no hesitation in falling back on the video evidence of what really happened that day. Incredibly, Jonathan Yaniv demanded that the RCMP call him an ambulance because he needed ambulatory care after that encounter, even though he's the one dishing out the violence and I'm the recipient of the violence. And then he posted something on social media, which he's deleted, but we kept it. We have a screenshot where he's claiming how viciously assaulted he was by me. Now, you saw the footage yourself, folks. You tell me who was the perpetrator of assault and who was being victimized by the assault. In any event, that's a long-winded answer to say that this is now in the, or will be in the hands of the RCMP. I think it's clear-cut. I think it's assault. I in no way expressed any danger to them. I'm simply asking questions. Maybe the questions are impolite. I'll grant you that, but these two, as far as I can tell, they're fraudsters who game the system. They game the BC Human Rights Tribunal. They game the auto insurance business. So many. And sooner or later, somebody's going to have to come in and say enough is enough and not worry, presumably, about being called transphobic. And come on, this isn't even a transgendered individual. As far as I'm concerned, this is a very disturbed individual who still has a liking, apparently, for young girls. And what better way to get closer to them than to pretend to be a woman? And we have a super chat. Jay Barrett, $25. Trudeau must go. Your Obama 2.0 pain will end soon. Thanks, Rebel, for all you do. And also from Tim Evans, 64, Canadian $20. Thank you very much, by the way. Cheers to Ezra and team. Keep up the good work. And MVP, $5. You fill the void left by the shill media. Keep up the good work. And wow, that's just like that. $50 came in. Thank you so much to you trio of generous donors. And to go back to you, Mr. Barrett, Trudeau must go. Everyone in my circle is hoping that. We're going to see what happens on October 21st. I have to be honest, I don't know if he will go. I know it's amazing given the scandals, given the public policy flops, given what he's done to the Alberta economy, given how he's embarrassed himself on the world stage. You would think, why aren't the Conservatives ahead by a solid double-digit margin right now? I think this election, as it stands today, and we do have almost 2 months to go, which is an eternity and a half in politics. It's either going to be, I think, a Liberal minority or a Conservative minority. I really can't see it any other way. And I can tell you this, folks, in one sense, that's good news. Prior to February, with the whole SNC Lavalin affair and Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott and so on and so forth, and Admiral Mark Norman, of course, let's not forget that. It's such a super underreported story in this country. I was thinking this is going to be another Liberal majority, but I think he suffered enough damage to reduce the majority to a minority, perhaps. The fact that it's not an all-out Conservative majority is just dreadful. It's disturbing. I would personally love to see Andrew Scheer develop a spine on some of the issues. And there's just a behavior of being so timid that he's allowing, defeat to be grasped from the jaws of victory. But maybe in the 6 or 7 weeks ahead, that will be a thing of the past. But I wouldn't bet on it. I can see by the clock on the wall that, wow, time flies. Hey, everybody, this is the unofficial last weekend of summer. Go out, have some fun, be safe, enjoy yourselves. The rat race, as I said at the beginning, starts all over on Tuesday for most of us. So in the meantime, have a wonderful long Labor Day weekend, and Ezra will be back in this spot likely next Friday. Enjoy yourselves, and thanks for watching. Take care.